Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for spending your time and doing this interview for the Council of Women World Leaders, which you've been chair of the council and a great member, so we want to thank you for that also.
Thank you.
We are doing a series on women leaders now. The women who have been leaders since I did my original series of interviews, to see what's different, what's changed, what hasn't changed, you know, how do you perceive the role? How do you see what's happening with gender? You know, issues that you confront. So let's just start though with your sort of first notions of pursuing a role in leadership. You know, did you just wake up one day, read a fortune cookie? You know, how did you decide that?
Well, I think because I was raised in a home here in Iceland in the belief that women could do anything they wanted, just like men could do anything they wanted. So I had the notion, you know, during my childhood that things were pretty good and I could do anything and I could pursue all my dreams. And then when turning 20, you know, finishing college, entering more of the real world, I realized that the fight was not over, that gender equality had not been achieved. So I think I can say that I became, you know, became a firmer feminist with every year. But I also always had this kind of inner conviction that I could pursue my dreams and I should pursue them. So I think my upbringing had a lot to say, but I also think that when you enter kind of the real world, if I may say so, I mean the labor market, university, etc., you begin to see the flaws of the system and how women are still not valued fully in the same manner as men.
So thinking back when you took office, can you reflect upon some of the sort of surprising barriers that you found, or you know, we hear from a lot of the women that the press over scrutinizes them.
Yeah.
You know, or President Vigdis even said at one point in Iceland, you know, there's no tolerance for women's mistakes.
There is no tolerance. There is a demand that women are more perfect, you know, when it comes to also not just politics, but also moral issues, when it comes to issues that I think men have less demands than women. So, but of course, you know, I think I entered barriers just as soon as I entered local council of Reykjavík, as I entered parliament. I realized that there were strong demands. I come from a party which is a feminist party. So I think that was, of course, very helpful for me and my politics, being in a party which was openly feminist. However, you always have to fight for every step. And I also realized when I started participating in international collaboration that even though I had encountered a lot of barriers here in Iceland, that was nothing compared to what other women around the world had encountered. So I think it was a real learning process for me. I served as the Minister for Education, Culture and Research just after the economic crisis here in Iceland. So I think that was a very demanding time. Of course, demanding time for everybody here in Iceland, but not least for myself, being in this office, a young woman, and I experienced then that people said, "Oh, there is a girl there." There is a girl there. Yeah, should we listen to the girl? But it took some time, and it took some sort of a balanced approach between firmness and caring, which as I said, I did not. You know, you are not kind of fully created leader when you enter a ministry for the first time. So you have to kind of also be humble and learn. But I think that I had encountered a lot of barriers before I became a Prime Minister. So I think I had gained a lot of self-confidence during all those years.
I think that's interesting. You reflect upon what's often called the double bind, the notion that you have to be firm, and yet too firm, people don't like you.
Yeah.
So you have to be kind and nice, but too nice,
not
people
good.
don't respect you.
Yeah. And I think, by nature, I'm a relatively nice person. I like to think so. At least I was criticized a lot for smiling too much. You should stop smiling. It's really, nobody takes you seriously if you're continuously smiling like an idiot. so that was a problem, obviously. And, and you have to be firm. But when I say firm, I did not find it difficult to be firm. But it's difficult when people kind of try to ignore you, and then you have to be more than firm. You just have to be angry. And that makes people uneasy when women get angry.
And yet, as you say, there's always a context within leadership.
Yeah.
My thought around that is, to be a great leader, you need as many tools in your toolbox as possible.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to be both, and you have to be able to learn as you go by. And I think that's what's proven most important for me, is being able to learn as I go by, because nobody is born a leader, and I'm still learning. Even though I'm out of a formal position of leadership, I'm still learning leadership.
Well, I think you're on a journey of leadership.
Yeah.
There's going to be much more to come.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I think people look to you to be that moral voice, to speak out. I mean, you have had now this experience of being Prime Minister, and people want you to have an opinion. Mm-hmm. They want you to have a point of view.
Yeah, and I think some women are afraid when they enter leadership roles to talk about gender equality. I think they are afraid that they will be judged as too soft, that equality and status of women is something that's soft. I always say these are the toughest issues, because gender equality is about half of humankind, and it's about the human rights of that half. And nothing can be more tough, in my opinion. This is definitely not a soft issue. But I think sometimes women feel a little bit intimidated. If I'm going to talk about this, people will say, "Oh, you shouldn't be talking about that. You should only be talking about economy." But the economy doesn't work if the women are not participating. So it's also a core of economic policy, in my opinion. So I experienced that people are always trying to define you as a female leader, trying to frame what a female leader should look like and behave like, and what a female leader should talk about. And I think it's very important that female leaders kind of allow themselves to be themselves, talk about the issues that are close to their hearts, and remember that they were voted because of those issues.
Well, and we don't expect all male leaders to be the same, do we?
No.
In fact, they're entitled to be completely whomever
diverse,
they are.
Yeah, and talk about whatever.
But for some reason, you get to represent all women.
Yeah, I know, and that's really the problematic of it, that you are supposed to represent all women, and as I said, have some sort of what I call a motherly morality, which can be quite complicated when you're dealing in politics. Right. I once said in the Icelandic parliament, "I'm really not the mother of this minister." And everybody were a little bit shocked. Oh, really? So that's what was a demand I felt very strongly, that I should be the mother of all ministers and all parliamentarians that formed the majority.
Because we have archetypes.
Yeah.
Mother is one of those archetypes.
Mother is one of those archetypes, yeah.
So looking now, at both the advancement and what we're seeing and what we're hearing is some erosion of this advancement.
Yeah.
Number one, what do you think is driving that erosion? And number two, what do we do about it?
Well, I think there are very strong forces driving that erosion, which we also can call a backlash, because obviously throughout history we have seen that gender equality has not been a linear progress, you know. We've always had backlashes, but what's happening now is that social media and new technologies are kind of amplifying the backlash. So voices of what I believe is a minority are extremely loud, and they are having a ripple effect, you know, which is exceeding really and is much bigger than actually the roots of those voices. And I think it's part of a bigger picture where certain societal challenges, where women are one of the culprits that is being pointed at as the root of some societal challenges, and immigrants are another root or source of discontent. So we can feel that this is some sort of a blaming game where the fact that women have gone out on the labor market, they are achieving a lot, and that's somehow a problem when we listen to those voices. And what can we do about it? Well, I think it's extremely important for those who continue to want to fight for gender equality and see that as part of the human rights fight, that we join forces. You know, if I take my lessons learned from Icelandic feminism, solidarity is key, but also organizing, because we need to be organized to counter these forces. And I'm talking about international solidarity and international organization.
Well, because at this point, social media is international.
Yeah.
So really, international is one of them.
A lot has changed. A lot has changed since I entered politics. I was one of the first, and maybe the first Icelandic parliamentarian to be on Facebook in 2007. So it was, that was not the thing back in those days. And I'm not that old, you know. So we see a very different worldview. We see our young people looking at the same influencers on the social media, which are very, you know, they are have gained a lot of ground, and this is absolutely a new landscape.
Speaking of youth, I'm going to turn it over to a young leader,
Yeah.
Nína Guðrún Geirsdóttir, who will also talk to you about leadership and the role of young women, young men, going forward. So thank you, Katri Jakobsdo ttir, for sitting with me with this interview, sharing your experiences, and I will say, to be continued.
To be continued. Thank you so much, Laura.
Nice to meet you. So you were both, you know, you were a woman, but you were also a young woman, you know. And how did you, because I recall you always had that strong sense of self and self-confidence. Is that something that you felt like you were born with, or did it come naturally as you know, took upon more power?
Well, that's a good question. I think it was really part of being brought up by parents who were very focused that all their children should have the same opportunities, that they should all be playing, you know, on a level playing field.
Yes.
Not only was my mother a feminist, but my father was also. He actually did something that was very unusual in the 80s in Iceland, that he actually took a break to be at home when I was a small girl.
Oh, interesting.
And everybody thought that was extremely odd.
Crazy.
Yes, just crazy. But he did that, so he took a break from work to stay at home for, you know, it was not a long time, but it still raised a lot of attention. So this is my upbringing. And I think that has been a, has been a great part of it. But of course, you're always encountering some challenges. So you need to constantly kind of remind yourself that you can do it. And that doesn't stop,
No.
I'm turning 50 and I still have to remind myself.
Very good. Well, you did touch on this before, but the importance of strong female role models for women, young women growing up. I mean, you obviously had that in our president, Vigdís.
Yes, Vigdís, of course, was elected president in 1980 when I was 4 years old.
Yes.
But also I was growing up in a society where, there were strong feminist movements emerging. We listened to a record called Go Girls or Áfram Stelpur in my home. So there were a lot of strong role models from the very beginning. And when I entered politics, I also took inspiration from many of the women who were there before me.
Yeah. As someone who moves between politics, culture, literature, how do you think the narratives we construct about leadership shape women's political pathways and public legitimacy?
That's such a good question. Because we tend to put people in kind of boxes, we tend to define them from what we know from our culture. So I was just saying to Laura that I had been often seen as some sort of a mother figure, which is interesting. but I think we often kind of, I think it's at least very prominent when it comes to women politicians, that we try to kind of frame them within known frameworks from our culture. And often women in politics have to struggle to kind of break out of that box, out of that framework of culture.
Yeah. And mentioning the mother figure, so Katri Gunnarsdóttir this morning at a panel, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, she said that when she was, coming up in her party, that she felt like she had to dial back, like her feminine ways, and had to become more masculine to get ahead in her party. Is that something that you've experienced?
Well, at least this is something that I've seen. I've seen in other women in politics. I have always been very clear in my heart that I would not change. So, and I was also criticized for that, for example, not to dress the part. When I became Prime Minister, I just dressed as I liked. So of course you have to think about, because politics is a game created by men, and the rules are made by men, and it can be quite easy to kind of enter the game, play by the rules, and forget that you did not create that game, that you have to do things differently. And that is what I strived and struggled to do.
Right, exactly, very good. Well, Iceland has seen remarkable generational progress on gender equality, as we know. What do you believe young Icelandic women expect from political institutions today that previous generations did not? And how should leaders respond?
I think there is a lot of turbulence with the young generation today, not only in Iceland, but also in the rest of the world, because there are huge challenges. There are more conflicts and wars than we have seen since the end of Second World War. We are seeing immigration, climate, and new technologies. We're seeing growing inequalities between countries and regions. So there are several challenges that I think young people today are facing, and naturally they kind of question everything that has been done. And I think we will see many things come out of this turbulence. I think we will see different trends in politics, but I really feel that there is some sort of a shift happening, and I think that that derives really from the fact that we are seeing graver challenges that we have seen for some time.
Let's end on a personal note. What is your favorite book, and what do you think it says about you?
My favorite book? well, of course, I read so much, so it's so difficult to.
I know it's a horrible.
It's a horrible question. It's a very bad question. But Jaroslav Hasek wrote the book about the soldier strike, which is one of my favorites.
Yes.
I read it regularly, and I think it's really about how you can find inner peace, even though the world is at war, and what it takes to do that, and it also shows very well the absurdities and the atrocities of war. Right. And I think it's a very relevant book still, and not least now in times of war and conflicts.
Yeah.